All right, so it sounds like you're ready to take a deep dive with us into Genesis 46.
Yeah,
It seems like you're pretty interested in Jacob's journey to Egypt.
definitely.
So we're going to unpack all the little fascinating details of this chapter,
Okay.
from, who all went with him
Right.
to why this whole trip was such a pivotal moment.
Yeah, and it's not your typical, road trip story, right?
Yeah.
This is a journey that really set the stage for some major developments in biblical history,
Okay.
particularly for the Israelites.
So the chapter starts with Jacob arriving at Beersheba.
Right.
And that's not just a random pit stop, is it?
Not at all. Beersheba held a lot of significance, especially for Jacob's family. It was the place where his father, Isaac, built an altar to God.
Oh, wow.
So you can already sense this weight, the spiritual weight
Yeah.
hanging in the air as he gets there.
And that's where things get interesting, right?
Yeah.
God appears to Jacob in a vision.
Right.
And it's not just like, hey, what's up?
Not a casual drop in.
Yeah.
No. So in this vision, God is specifically reassuring Jacob about this whole going to Egypt thing.
Right.
Telling him, don't be afraid.
Don't worry about it.
Right, don't be afraid. He even promises that Jacob's descendants will become this great nation in Egypt.
Okay.
And it's almost like a direct echo back to God's promise to Abraham, who is Jacob's grandfather.
Right.
So you see these recurring themes, these
Yeah.
promises that God is making and keeping.
And you see God's faithfulness
Yeah.
just shining through here.
Yeah,
And there's that one detail that really jumped out to me.
yes.
God tells Jacob, I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again.
Wow.
I mean, what a powerful statement.
It is. It is. It's that reassurance that you're not alone.
Right.
Think about it. Leaving everything you know.
Right.
Your home, your land,
Your comfort zone.
your security. To venture into the unknown.
Right.
That's huge.
It is.
And so having that promise of God's presence
Right.
would have been everything for Jacob.
It would have made all the difference.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Now, speaking of family, this chapter just lays out the whole lineage,
Yes.
the whole family tree.
It does.
We get the rundown of all of his sons and all their descendants.
It's like a who's who of the Israelite family.
It is. And there are some really unique names in here, too.
Oh, yeah.
Jemuel, Yachin,
Right.
Zohar,
I love these names.
even Mupim.
It's true.
It makes you kind of wonder, what are the stories behind these names?
It does. It really makes it personal.
All right.
But it wasn't just about having, interesting or cool names.
Yeah.
These genealogies were super important
They were.
in ancient times.
They were.
It's not just record keeping.
Right.
Lineage was everything.
Right.
Your inheritance rights, your social standing, all of that.
It's true.
Your identity was tied to who your family was
Okay.
or where you came from.
It's fascinating, too, that it even mentions the two sons who had died in Canaan,
Yeah.
and Onan.
Yeah, why do you think they included that detail?
Why do you think that's in there?
It's almost like a little side note,
It is. It makes you pause.
doesn't it?
It does.
Maybe it's a reminder of the losses that Jacob had already experienced,
Yeah.
making this decision to uproot and leave Canaan even more complex.
Yeah.
It also kind of makes you wonder, does this foreshadow any future challenges?
What's coming next?
Right, for this family as they move into this new land.
Okay, so let's talk logistics.
Right.
Jacob and his family, livestock, all their possessions.
Yeah.
This is like a massive migration.
It is. It's a huge undertaking.
And wait a minute, Pharaoh himself provided the transportation.
Isn't that interesting?
It is.
That's
It's just that you don't see that every day.
Right.
I think that detail really suggests that Pharaoh saw something in Jacob and his family
Okay.
and their skills. Providing that kind of transportation, especially back then,
Yeah.
is a big deal.
Yeah.
A real gesture of respect and generosity.
Right. Yeah. It makes you wonder, what was Pharaoh hoping to gain from this arrangement?
Yeah, what was in it for him?
What was the motivation?
What was the payback?
Right.
Exactly.
It definitely gives us a glimpse into the relationship between Egypt and Canaan
Right.
at that time.
Yeah.
It could have been a hostile relationship.
Right.
There had to be some communication, some diplomacy
Right.
for something like this to happen.
Yeah, some agreements in place.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And speaking of numbers, the chapter tells us exactly how many people made the trip.
Does it?
It does. 66 people
Wow.
from Jacob's direct line, not including his sons' wives.
Okay.
Add in Joseph and his two sons who were already there,
Right.
plus all the wives, and you're looking at about 70 people in total.
That's a lot of people.
It is.
Yeah.
That's a significant number of people
Yeah.
to migrate to a new land.
To just pick up and move.
It makes you realize, like, the scale of this
Yeah.
and its potential impact,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely.
On Egypt and on Jacob's family.
Yeah.
Now, here's where things get really clever.
Ooh. I love a good strategy.
I know you do.
I do.
Joseph, remember, he's already in Egypt. He's
He's
in a pretty powerful position.
doing pretty well for himself.
He's doing all right.
Yeah.
Tells his family, okay, tell Pharaoh you're shepherds.
Interesting.
But he knows that Egyptians weren't exactly fond of shepherds.
Not exactly their favorite profession.
Yeah.
So what's going on there?
What do you think's going on?
I mean, it's brilliant when you think about it.
It is.
Because Joseph understood Egyptian society,
Right.
like inside and out.
Yeah.
He knew that shepherds, because of what they did,
Right.
right? They worked with animals. They were out
Right.
in the field.
Yeah.
They weren't considered the cleanest folks.
Well,
they were
I-
kind of looked down on.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was using that.
So he's using that social stigma to his advantage.
Exactly. He's playing this, we're just humble shepherds, happy to stay out of your way card.
Right. We're just going to be over here in the corner.
Right. Don't mind us. We'll be over here.
Right.
Smart move.
It is a smart move. It's like he was creating a buffer zone
Okay.
for his family
Okay.
to protect their identity, their culture,
Yeah.
their way of life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's basically securing their own little corner of Egypt.
Exactly.
And guess what? It worked.
It did.
Pharaoh says, okay.
He gives them permission to settle in Goshen,
Goshen.
this fertile region in the Nile Delta.
Okay.
Perfect for their flocks and herds.
So it's perfect for what they need.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
Right. And that settlement in Goshen really marks a pivotal moment, doesn't it?
It does.
This is the beginning of their long stay in Egypt,
Yes, the beginning of a new chapter.
which we know lasted for generations
Yes, it did.
and had a profound impact
It did.
on their identity.
It shaped who they became as a people.
Yeah. It's amazing to think about that.
Isn't it? That this one decision to
Mhm.
move to this new land.
Yeah. Would have such far-reaching consequences.
Yeah. And they weren't just relocating geographically either.
No, it was much more than that.
This was a complete
It was a total life change.
cultural and social shift.
Everything was different.
Imagine going to a place
Yeah.
with totally different customs, beliefs,
Everything you know is different.
Right.
The food, the language.
the way people interact,
Yeah.
different social structures.
Everything.
How do you think they adapted?
Well, that's a good question. And it's probably something that a lot of people listening are thinking about.
Right.
When you're in a completely new environment, how much do you hold on to what you know?
Right.
How much do you adapt to the new culture around you?
Yeah. Did they stick to their own traditions
Yeah.
or blend in with the Egyptians?
Or it was a little bit of both?
Right. What do you think?
Probably safe to say that it was a mix of both.
Yeah.
The text doesn't go into every little detail
Right.
of their daily lives, but we can kind of read between the lines and make some educated guesses.
Right.
I think it's safe to say that they held on to their core values and traditions.
Okay.
Their faith was central to who they were.
Right.
They continued to worship their God.
Right.
And they also had a strong sense of family.
Right.
Their family units remained intact.
Right.
They were a tight-knit group.
Okay, so those are the things they held on to.
Yeah,
Right.
but at the same time,
Yeah.
they couldn't have just completely shut themselves off.
Right. They had to interact.
They had to interact with the Egyptians every day
Right.
to trade,
Right.
to work,
Yeah.
maybe even to build relationships.
Exact.
Over time, all those interactions would have had some influence.
It would have.
Right.
Right.
I mean, think about it. When different cultures come together,
Yeah.
there's always this exchange of ideas.
Here is food, clothing, stories,
Exactly. All of those things.
traditions, languages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
Yeah, it's bound to happen.
It's a fascinating thing to think about,
It is.
how those two cultures might have influenced each other.
Right. And we know, of course, that this move to Egypt,
Yeah,
this is what sets the scene for everything that happens in Exodus.
it does.
Right.
Yeah.
The Israelites become this large and powerful nation,
Yeah.
but then they find themselves enslaved by the Egyptians.
Right.
And it's interesting, right?
It is.
Like we see the seeds of that future conflict
almost like it's planted here,
right here in Genesis 46.
right in this chapter.
Right. The Israelites are given this separate space.
They're kind of set apart.
Right. This otherness,
Right.
which was initially beneficial to them.
Yeah, it was part of Joseph's strategy
Right.
to protect them.
It gave them that buffer.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But it also could have contributed to that mistrust.
Right. that sense of us versus them.
Right.
Yeah.
That otherness.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It can lead to misunderstandings,
It does.
to fear,
Yes.
to conflict.
Yeah. And it eventually leads to their oppression,
Yeah.
and then, of course, their cry for liberation.
And that whole story of the Exodus.
Right, exactly. It's
Powerful.
But right now, in Genesis 46,
Yeah.
we're seeing Jacob and his family settling into this new life.
They're starting to get comfortable.
Right.
They're finding their place.
Right. They're under Joseph's protection.
Right. They have someone looking out for them.
They have land for their flocks.
They have the resources they need.
And they're together as a family.
Yeah.
It's a moment of peace
Yeah, it is.
and stability.
Yeah.
It is.
But you can't help but feel that there's this undercurrent
Right.
of uncertainty.
Yeah, there's something looming.
What's next?
Right.
What does the future hold?
Right, because they don't know
You don't know.
what's coming next.
Right.
Yeah, they have no idea.
They have no idea.
And you know what? Neither do we.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it?
It is.
We get to journey with them
It's true.
and discover what unfolds.
It's true. We get to turn the page
Exactly.
and see what happens next.
That's what keeps us coming back
That's right.
for more.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's exciting.
it is.
It's a cliffhanger.
Yeah, it is.
We'll have to wait and see what happens next.
We will.
And that brings us to the end of part 1
All right.
of our deep dive into Jacob's journey to Egypt.
I can't wait to see what happens in part 2.
I know, me too.
It's going to be good.
It's gonna be good. Welcome back to our deep dive into Jacob's journey to Egypt. We left off with the family settling into their new home in Goshen. But Genesis 46 doesn't just end with everybody's happy and things are good. This whole migration had huge implications. And it really makes you think about how Joseph, with his newfound power and influence, had to navigate Egyptian society.
Yeah, definitely. It's tricky.
Yeah.
You got to remember, Joseph was Pharaoh's right-hand man.
Right.
He held a position of power, but bringing this large group of foreigners into Egypt,
Yeah.
especially shepherds.
Who weren't exactly the most beloved people group.
Not exactly. Yeah, it required, some finesse. It's not like he could just snap his fingers and be like, hey, everyone, welcome my family.
Here's all my relatives.
Yeah.
It's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's not that simple. And the text really highlights how strategically Joseph went about it all.
It does. It does.
He anticipates Pharaoh's questions.
Uh-huh.
He preps his brothers.
Right.
Like, okay, here's what you're going to say. Here's how you're going to answer.
Be prepared. Be prepared.
And even uses the Egyptians' own, prejudices.
Right.
To his advantage.
Exactly to his advantage.
So clever.
Very clever.
So when Pharaoh asks about their occupation.
Right. Big question. What do you guys do?
Right. Jacob's sons are totally prepared. They're like,
Sure.
your servant's occupation has been with livestock from our youth, even till now, both we and also our fathers.
Yeah, a well-rehearsed answer.
Right. And we talked about it earlier.
Yeah. What a clever way to play on that Egyptian aversion to shepherds.
Absolutely.
It's like they're basically saying, look, we're shepherds. We're not trying to, we don't belong in your high society.
Ah.
We're happy to just stay out here in Goshen tending our flocks, not bothering anybody.
Yeah. Just let us do our thing. We're happy to be out here.
Exactly. Leave us alone. We'll be over here.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, they're securing their own little corner of Egypt.
Yeah, strategic separation.
Yeah, and it worked.
Yeah.
Pharaoh's like, okay, fine. You can stay in Goshen.
Problem solved.
Right. This fertile region in the Nile Delta.
Perfect for grazing flocks.
Exactly.
A strategic location.
Yeah. And this whole settlement in Goshen, this really marks a pivotal moment, right?
It does. It's the beginning.
Yeah. It's the beginning of their long stay in Egypt, which, as we know, lasts for generations and has this profound impact on their identity.
Yeah, a whole new chapter in their story is unfolding.
Yeah. And it wasn't just a change of address either.
No, it was a whole new world.
This was like a complete cultural and social shift for these people.
A whole new way of life.
Imagine going to a place with totally different customs and beliefs.
Yeah, different language.
Different food.
Different social structures, everything.
Yeah, it'd be so different. How do you think they adapted to this new environment? I mean, did they stick to their own traditions?
Right.
Or did they try to blend in with the Egyptians?
It's a good question. I think it was probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, the text doesn't give us, a day-by-day account of their lives,
Right.
but we can look at some clues and kind of figure some things out. I think they definitely held on to their core beliefs and their core practices.
Okay.
Their faith in God, their family structures.
Yeah.
That was central to who they were.
Right, the core of their identity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they couldn't have lived in complete isolation.
Right. They had to interact with their
They
neighborhood.
had to, right, they had to have interactions with the Egyptians every day.
Yeah, for sure.
Trading, working,
Building relationships.
maybe even building relationships, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there were friendships that formed, trade partnerships.
Right.
All sorts of things.
So over time, all those interactions would have inevitably led to some level of cultural exchange.
Definitely.
Right.
You can't avoid it.
Yeah. It's fascinating to think about all the ways.
Yeah, the food, the
Those
clothing.
stories, the traditions.
All of it.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how those two cultures might have influenced each other.
Yeah. What do they learn from each other? What do
Yeah.
they share with each other?
Right, exactly. And then, of course, we know that this move to Egypt sets the stage for the dramatic events in Exodus.
Right, the sequel.
Right. The Israelites become this great nation, but then they find themselves enslaved by the Egyptians.
It's a dramatic turn of events.
It is. It's interesting, isn't it, that we see those seeds of future conflict kind of already present here in Genesis 46.
Yeah, almost like it's foreshadowing
But-
what's to come.
Right.
Yeah.
The Israelites are given this separate space in Egyptian society, this, sort of otherness that was initially beneficial to them, but it could have contributed to that mistrust and misunderstanding down the line.
It's that double-edged sword,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It can protect you, but it can also isolate you.
Right. And that isolation can breed fear
Yeah.
and suspicion and distress.
And ultimately, conflict.
Right. So from this place of strategic separation, they end up in this situation of oppression.
Yeah, the situation changes.
Yeah. It's a dramatic turn of events.
It is. It's a reminder that even the best laid plans can have unintended consequences.
It's true. It makes you think about how sometimes things don't always go the way we expect them to.
Definitely. Life is full of twists and turns.
But here in Genesis 46, we see Jacob and his family finding their footing in this new home. They have Joseph's protection, land for their flocks. They're together as a family.
It's a moment of peace, of stability.
Yeah, amidst all this change and uncertainty.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, they're starting to figure things out.
Yeah, they're making it work.
They're getting settled.
They're finding a new normal.
Yeah. But there's definitely this sense of the unknown hanging in the air, right?
Oh, yeah. There are still a lot of questions.
What's going to happen to them next? How's this move going to shape their destiny?
What does the future hold? And that, my friend, is a question for another day.
Wow, we've really taken a journey back in time, haven't we?
We have.
With Jacob and his family.
It's been quite a ride.
It has. From that divine call to leave Canaan,
Right.
the family tree, the strategic move to Egypt,
Yeah.
and finally settling into this new land.
Yeah. It really makes you think about how, even though this happened thousands of years ago,
Right?
there are these timeless themes in this story
There are.
that still resonate with us today.
Absolutely. It does make you think about the importance of family,
Yeah.
facing the unknown with faith,
Mhm.
and navigating, all those tricky social situations.
That's way down.
Right. I mean, those are all challenges that people face
Yeah, in every generation.
in every generation, right?
It's absolute.
It's like, it's universal.
It is.
Think about it. Jacob had to put his trust in God's promise,
Right.
even though it meant leaving everything he knew behind.
Everything familiar.
Everything,
Yeah.
like his home, his land, his comfort zone,
His security.
everything. That takes a lot of courage.
It does. It makes you wonder what was going through his mind
It does.
as they were packing up,
As they're making those preparations, right?
as they're saying goodbye to the only life they've ever known.
It's true. What anxieties, what hopes.
Yeah. What fears did he have to overcome?
It's true. And then you have Joseph,
Right, on the other side of things.
right, who had to figure out how to protect his family
Yeah.
in a completely foreign land.
A whole different world.
Right.
Yeah.
He had to be smart, resourceful, and really understand that culture.
He had to. He had to know how to work the system
He did.
to make things happen for his family.
It's almost like a masterclass
Isn't it?
in cultural intelligence
Yeah.
and diplomacy.
He's a bro.
He is. Joseph used his knowledge, his position,
Uh-huh.
to create that win-win situation
He did, for his family and for Pharaoh.
for everybody.
Yeah.
It's such a good reminder
Isn't it?
that understanding different cultures and perspectives
Yeah.
is so important.
It's crucial, especially in the world we live in today.
Right, which is becoming more and more interconnected.
More and more globalized.
So what does it all mean? What can we take away from this story?
Yeah.
Thousands of years later, what do you think?
It's a story about hope.
Okay.
Even in the midst of uncertainty and change,
Okay.
Jacob and his family faced huge challenges.
Right.
I mean, uprooting your entire life,
Right.
moving to a foreign land, that's not easy.
It's not.
But through it all,
Yeah.
they experienced God's faithfulness,
Okay.
the strength of their family bonds,
Right.
and the power of strategic thinking.
Right.
It's a powerful reminder that even when things are tough,
Yeah.
we're not alone. We have resources.
Yeah.
We have people we can lean on.
Yeah.
And we can use our smarts
Right.
to find solutions.
Absolutely. It's also a story about beginnings, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, this whole migration to Egypt, it was a major turning point
huge turning point.
for the Israelites.
Shaped their destiny.
It set the stage for their future as a nation.
It did.
It's true.
That's a pretty amazing thought.
It is.
That sometimes what feels like an ending
Yeah.
is really just a new beginning.
Oh, I like that.
A chance for growth, adaptation,
Yeah.
and discovering new possibilities.
That's good.
It is.
Yeah.
It makes you think about those unexpected turns
Yeah.
in our own lives
Right.
and how those can actually lead to some pretty incredible opportunities.
It's true, those plot twists.
Yeah, those detours.
Yeah.
You never know where they might lead.
You never know.
They might just take you somewhere amazing.
That's right. So embrace the unknown.
Exactly.
Right.
Be open to new possibilities.
Yeah.
You never know what adventures might be waiting around the corner.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
I mean, the story of Jacob's journey,
Yeah.
it's more than just some ancient tale.
It's a reflection of the human experience.
It is. It's our hopes, our fears, the enduring power of faith.
And family.
And family.
Those things that connect us all.
Yeah. And it challenges us to think about our own journeys.
It does.
What challenges are we facing? How can we find strength in our families and our communities?
Yeah. How can we use our knowledge and understanding
Right.
to navigate this complex world,
To make a difference,
to leave our mark?
to leave our own legacy.
Exactly.
What a great way to wrap things up.
It has been a fantastic journey.
It has. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Jacob's journey to Egypt.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And as always,
Yeah.
we encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking questions.
That's what it's all about.
Thanks for joining us.